I welcome Davide to introduce Salvatore.
Okay. Okay, yeah, the applause is for Salvatore, of course. It's not for me. And this is a microphone you will use for karaoke. So I'm delighted to announce the second keynote speaker, Salvatore Settecasi. He's a senior architect in Arupa. You know, maybe quite of us should know at least this global firm. It operates in Milano in the Department of Master Planning and Urban Design. He will tell us his story, mostly what has been done in the last years. Showing us 3 projects. For example, Arupa is quite sensitive in net zero carbon cities. One of them is Dongtan. Thank you very much. The first one they've been designing, and then he will question us. This question is quite broad. It's quite interesting, I guess, for all of us, since all of us live in cities. And so I will leave the floor to Salvatore. Thank you for coming, and take the floor, please.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here. Thank Davide, thank you, Claudio, as well, because I'm seeing a lot of interesting people interested on energy, interested on green technologies, interested on innovation, in a world interested on our future. That's why I would like to discuss with you some projects that I did, and I would like to discuss especially about future cities. As Arupa, I'm part of a master planning team based in Milan, and in my experience, I did several projects at the huge scale, at the master planning scale, and I would like to share with you like 3 of them. But before doing this, I would let me very quickly introduce who is Arupa, what we do, which kind of project we are doing around the world. Arupa was founded in 1946 by Salvatore Arupa, who was an engineer with a strong passion in architecture and philosophy as well. Right now, we are around 13,000 people worldwide, and we have 90 offices in the world. We are working since the beginning with the most famous great architect that we have in the world, and by doing also one of the most iconic buildings and most great buildings we have worldwide. One positive thing that I would like to highlight tonight is that we are free from shareholder influence. That means that we are absolutely free to think, we are absolutely open, curious, and we like to work with our own responsibility. Okay, you know maybe most of the interesting projects that fortunately we are working on. And I would like to say only that we work, of course, for different drivers, but not only for profit. As part of Milan team, I have to say that we are in Milan since 2001. Our Milan office has been founded by Gabriele Del Mese, which is a very good engineer with a good passion, a strong passion for architecture as well and for literature as well. A very, very smart guy, I have to say. Right now, we are around 80 people in Milan. There are several skills that we can provide to our client. And as part of Master Planning Urban Design team, I'm here with you to show how we start doing our project. We basically, our work are based on the fact that the ecological footprint, the urban population growth, the human development index are saying to us that we are in a crucial time where we have to consider carefully our future, our next step. We strongly believe that the cities are the right place where it is possible to manage to address the current issues, for instance, the climate change. We do this in a sustainable and integrated way. We like to work together in an open mind way, I have to say, and focus ourselves on the diverse need of every single project in order to provide alternatives and evaluate them on time. And the added value has to be evaluated both qualitatively and quantitatively. Our commitment is to imagine more efficient, smart, and livable cities where we live. But my first question is how it is possible to do this. We think that it's possible to do by thinking holistically, by thinking efficiently, and I'm particularly interested on the third one, by thinking resilient. And now this is our presentation, our discussion, our future cities. My question is, how should they be? I think I provide this question to myself maybe day by day, because every day I see my city, Milan, and I see how Milan is changing. I see how Milan is growing up. I see how the future of Milan can be possible. As Arup, we identified currently 6 drivers I don't want to say to follow, but to clearly highlight the main topics. For instance, they can be green, future-facing, intelligent, responsible, beautiful, and resilient. In order to explain these 6, of course, they are not enough. I'm so convinced about that. But I would like to start discussing with you about this and use that as a pretext to show my project. The first one is Eco Valley in China. The second one is in Doha, Migrant Workers Initiative. The third one is Press Constitución in Chile. The first one, Eco Valley, is, as I said, in Beijing, in a site very close to Beijing. Our client was a private client that was asking us to bring in a new settlement the positive things that Beijing has. For instance, the sense of diversity, the sense of use of the road, the streets, and so on. But they, on the other hand, they asked us to not bring in our project what the negative facts in Beijing are. For instance, the pollution, noises, and so on. Setting the context, our site was immediately on the south side of Beijing. It was a site very well connected and with the presence of a river. And during the site survey that we did, we noted a lot of constraints and opportunities on the same site. The negative things was the flooding area that was present and represent a dangerous item. On the other hand, there were a lot of opportunities. For instance, the presence of a lot of trees, millions of trees, a lot of agricultural land. And then, starting after this survey, we challenged the land use plan originally provided by the Planning Institute in Beijing. Basically, from this, we arrived to this. We designed together with the Planning Institute several new shapes in order to create a new environment, but keeping the main idea that was the green earth in the middle of our project. When I say green earth, it's not only a decorative green, it's a productive green. I'm talking about agricultural green. On the left, we designed an industrial area where it was possible to transform the products of agriculture in food to be distributed around. And on the right side, you can see the urban center. We provided, I think, a clear and very connected transportation network, not only by using roads, but with a strong and clear use of trees, of landscape, because the idea was to having a very well integrated connection network between agriculture, architecture, landscape, and nature. Again, we did a landscape master plan divided by phases. with several key points where it was possible to enjoy and to experience the new landscape that we were imagining. The use of waterscape by using the existing river, but also by creating demonstrative wetlands where people can be involved again and try and understand the new context. Then the main topic of this project that was, as I said, the agriculture, where in that case, we do not provide only productive agriculture, but we had the idea to give them also demonstration agriculture and experience agriculture, where everyone, students, inhabitants, visitors, can play with the field, with the agriculture, and then have this kind of experience that is strongly related, of course, with the food. Stormwater management, we did this plan, again, not by using a basic solution that comes from engineering, like huge pipes, concrete walls, and so on, but by using nature, basically. Again, we did this kind of analysis, and then at the end of the final phases, we tried to reduce about 50% the carbon consumption production by using a biomass produced on site, of course, and anaerobic digester. We did as well an architectural vision with the visitor centers, integration with the landscapes, new shapes. And then again, I think it is quite elegant shape, in some way futuristic shape of the new built environment. This is Eco Valley. Next project was in Doha. We did this project in Doha a couple of years ago, and this is related to the Migrant Workers Initiative. Our public client asked us to provide a good accommodation for the migrant workers that was coming to Qatar for the FIFA events for 2022. As you can see, Doha, as you know, Doha is a city with very nice buildings, with very nice landscape, seafront, and so on, very vibrant in one end. In the other end, in Doha are coming a lot of migrant workers from several countries that are not living in very good and safe conditions. So our client asked us to provide them a vision in order to identify the critical issues and provide a new project for their life in Qatar. Our first question was exactly who migrant workers are and where do they work. They basically work in very, very hard, difficult conditions. And how do they live? This is a picture of a common kitchen in that existing camp. And I have to say to you that when I did this visit, I was like shocked because it was not, it was unbelievable to see something like that. Then we started with identifying the site because at the beginning of the project, there was not site. So we are just working on the air. But as soon as we identify, then we provide this kind of vision, working at different scale, from the single unit on the left until the overall settlement, providing for each of them some degree of innovation. From the single unit, I said, about the spaces, the interior spaces, to the cluster, neighborhood, district. This was the most familiar to me, because my reference for this kind of scale was my town in Sicily. That was about 55,000 people. And this is the community of 40,000 workers, where we positioned not only a summary of districts, but we create some strong connection, and also we positioned amenity, like for instance, a church or mosque. And then this is the overall vision. So not only a better accommodation, but a real part of the new future Doha. Migrant Workers Initiative. The third project that I would like to share with you tonight is a project that we did in Chile in 2010, after an earthquake and tsunami that occurs in Chile in February 2010. We are in Constitución, and it was, I think, 100 people killed by the earthquake and tsunami. And the situation that we found when we arrived was like this. So on the background, you can see a lot of demolished, destroyed buildings. And on the first image, you can see a woman that is trying to come back to his life and is trying to go forward to her future. This is Constitución before the tsunami and earthquake. As you can see, it was a very nice city, very green, surrounded by green hills, with the river, Rio Maule Hill, low, dense city, with a lot of tourists and interesting amenities. This is Constitución a few days after the disaster. As you can see, the green isle becomes totally dry. A lot of, I think, like 90% in this area of buildings has been demolished. And when we arrived for the site survey, we found the situation very, very desperate. But we saw this kind of scenario, very, very dramatic. But on the other hand, we saw that everyone was doing something with his own hand in order to rebuild, in order to come back to life, in order to see at least a damn future. Okay, starting with the project, we identified, together with the Elemental, which was the architectural firm in Chile, three kind of key topics. The first one was viabilidad, so the sense of feasibility, the sense of reality of the project. We don't want to provide only renderings or ideas, but we would like to go directly on the topic, on the issue, try to solve the issue. The second was excelencia, so diseño integrado, so integrated design. The third one was participation for people and with people. The first plan was infrastructure with the three main actions that was the mobility plan, the stormwater plan, and then the mitigation plan. Because one of the first issue, of course, was to protect the city for the next to the next possible tsunami. At the same time, we try to solve some issue already present in Constitución. But again, not using a standard solution. Try to use the water, try to highlight the water, try to provide amenities by using the water. Then the public spaces. We identified three main areas on that, the riverfront, the seafront, and the downtown. About the riverfront, this is our scenario after tsunami. And the first ideas was coming from some engineer, local engineer maybe, and it was quite obvious, like a reaction after the tsunami. They want to build a huge concrete wall along the river. We had some doubt together with the architects, because a city that is living with a strong contact with this river cannot delete every kind of relationship with this river. So we tried again to work with nature by doing a green park with hills, montículos, they call them, that are the real protection for the tsunami in one hand. In the other hand, they protect and provide a green park for the city. About the seafront, we used the same approach, because on the north side, it was a huge plant that has been damaged. Then we have to protect the sea and also the plant. This is the image after the tsunami, and you can see here the plant. And this is our proposal. Again, by using trees, by using montículos, we tried to shape a green barrier that becomes also a public space to be used for visitors and for citizens. Same approach here, where we positioned the pitch in a elevated level, a protected level. And then the downtown. Here the hierarchy the priority was to rebuild schools, for instance, the church, the public spaces, where people can find again the sense of community. These are typology studies that we provided, and this is, I think, the main strategy of our project. The previous plan was forecasting to have some kind of expansion. We said, no, we already have a space within the boundary. We don't go consuming other field, but we grow within our city. So we did the more dense intervention. And after solved the issues, we tried to improve the potential the Constitution already had. About the energy, we use a new approach, new in this kind of country, because as I show now, we tried to recover the heating produced by the plant and sharing the heat for the public buildings and the public function and the social housing. We introduce the topic of the recycling waste, and introducing the fact that by recycling waste, the organic waste, it is possible to use, as you know very well, to produce biogas and compost for viveros and for taxis and public transport, reducing the pollution that was one of the most critical issues in Constitution. Social housing, again, we are just proposing something that is quite standard in our countries. And now, I have to say, 5 years after the tsunami and earthquake, as you can see on the right side, architects and people are rebuilding a lot of points, a lot of public buildings, a lot of residential areas, and a lot of improving the touristic potential. And as you can see, Constitution is now looking at its own future. Thank you very much. Okay, now Davide asked me to, in some way, stimulate some conversation, some discussion with you. So now I would like to hear from you, because we identified these 6 items, these 6 drivers, I would say. But I'm sure that they are not enough. They are not. There are millions of keywords that we can follow on shaping our future. I would like to hear from you if you have other suggestions on that, so we can discuss.
Integrated.
Yeah.
Every component should be integrated, like from heating to electricity, from public transport to bike sharing, everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree totally. I can add some more word on that, because this is a quite critical item you are mentioning. When I say integrated, I say integrated also for people. In our future cities, people can be also connected and integrated, not only our technical solution, because the city, at the end of the day, is done by people and for people.
Interactive, maybe, with more community engagement, meetups and maker movements and neighborhoods that are kind of designing their own, having more impact of their own into their neighborhood, I think. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I can just say that we are working on a research about workability. And this is, I'm discovering a lot of new, exciting things about this that are related on what you're saying. So, absolutely.
Yeah, just one question. What is your opinion on the social integration? I mean, putting the different social status inhabitants in one area, because usually what has happened, it's very differentiated all around the city. So there have been recently a lot of TED Talks and a lot of papers that show that that type of social integration of different layers of society into one district. I'm interested just how do you find this topic on the sustainable cities in the future?
Yeah, right. I think this is quite critical as well. I strongly believe that I don't have one solution already done. I know that it is quite difficult to have some kind of integration, 100%. Of course, I can just say that if we separate people, this doesn't work. I can just say this. I think we have this challenge for future cities. Try to stay together, try to share experience and culture. As I say before, for migrant workers, for instance, there were a lot of different cultures mixed together. And at the end, this is a super positive thing, I think. It is difficult for us now to manage it, but I think this is quite our future. So we have to challenge the situation of this.
Because they are also different energy consumption. They are also different energy consumption profiles. So waste heat from one can be integrated into to power the other sector, because they tend to use different amounts of energy and in different time.
Yeah, again, this is I think a very current issue, but there is I have only one answer: education. So if we start by educate ourselves, I think we can solve, not tomorrow maybe, but I don't know, in the next years.
More questions. We start from the background, so I go a bit further.
Do you use also some kind of total cost of ownership concept for this kind of cities? Because I think on the short term they are maybe more expensive than current cities, maybe the current ones, because they require huge investments. But do you use also some kind of total cost of ownership if they're even expensive on a long term? Because normally you build a city not for 10 years, you build normally a city for 50 years, 100 years, 1,000 years.
Well, I think it's quite important to understand that our future is in our hand. So if we invest money on different fields, I think we have to decide on how to invest in our cities, because for my experience, they are the key for our future, for our next days, for our future in the world. So I think this is, if we look only on a short term, I think we are quite wrong, because we have to spend right now, but we have to spend thinking at the future.
The other question? Was it? Yeah, here it is.
Yeah, I just want to know, like, when you build a new city, how important is the culture of that place? The culture and history, how important is that? Like, for example, this city which is demolished, when you reconstructed it, how much importance you are given to express the history or the culture the place already had and they lost it? So how much is important?
Yeah. I think it's so important, because there are no citizens happy without any identity. I think the identity is basically what you are saying is so crucial, because otherwise, okay, we are in a global age, but sometimes we need to recognize ourselves, our past, of course, and also our identity. Identity is possible to be managed with architecture, with culture as well, and again, stay together.
Yeah, I was wondering, for these kind of cities that you're designing and so on, what kind of energy production do you consider? Because it could be either like just plug and play, that you have already a nuclear reactor over there or something like that, or do you integrate into the design, I don't know, decentralized grids and PV modules all over the city, or for the production for the city in order to convert? Because I mean, if you're gonna have a really smart city with good efficiency, it could be better to actually have integrated already renewable energies inside of that.
Well, the examples are quite different, you know. But for instance, in this one, the latest one in Chile, we tried to build within the city, also because it was already the land available, one, and the infrastructure available. You know, when I say infrastructure, I mean also energy, of course. So, but we have not only built, but we have to build in a new way in that country, in a way that you know very well, with the new systems, with the new concept, but in a very well integrated way with the new system, and also with a new approach. The idea to have the plant that share his power, his heat to the city, I think is amazing in that place. I think something like that. So again, integration, education, and energy and technical solutions for our future.
Hello. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very interesting.
Oh,
I would like to ask you in how do you get the community for the one you're building the city take part in the decisions you're making for the city? If you have any mechanism for active participation of the community, how do you engage the community in building a city which would be for them?
Yeah, absolutely. This is, again, I can discuss again about this project, because one of the three key points that I shown was participation. In the main square of Constitución, it was an open house, Casa Abierta, it was called, where people, every kind of people can go, vote, decide, give the priority, and then together with the politicians, together with the designers, together with the, with the students as well. So they decide for their own future. We were only the designer in some way, you know. So for me, it's so important having this kind of sharing and participation.
Okay. Hi, I'm a student in Smart Cities program here. Okay. Yeah, and thank you for the presentation. And my question is, when you go for a greenfield project like this, when you build a city from scratch, how much do you consider the latest technologies? And when do you think that the latest technology is ready to be adopted into that new greenfield project? Like if there is a new concept in IoT, when do you think you can incorporate that technology in this new project of yours?
Well, I have to say, first of all, that there is no project starting from scratch, never. Because there is always something that you can follow, something that you can see. Also in the desert one, you can also always see something that you can use as your reference. For instance, the climate conditions, for instance, the winds, for instance, the solar exposition, and so on. Well, the use of technology depends on a lot of factors. For instance, the client, the education, again. How many people know what means, I don't know, smart grid in the poor countries, for instance? Depend of a lot of, I will say, items that you can find locally, find or not find locally. So, as Arup, we try to improve, to use the new technology, but at the end of the day, I don't think the new technology are always the good thing to do. I think the good education, the good practice are the good thing that you can share also on the moon.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I was just wondering what your opinion is on the car in the city, because to me, like the really plague of the city as a non-car user is cars, because they pollute, they make a lot of sound. They are dangerous, and but it's so hard to convince people to abandon their car because it's such an easy thing, and urban transport hasn't been able to solve this problem yet.
Yeah, my answer is I'm with you. I'm totally with you. Again, it is difficult in Italy. It is very difficult to convince something to buy their cigarette without the car. You know, also if the guy has to do 100 meters, they bring their car and he go. Again, an educational point, I think. I believe sometime some colleague ask or discuss with me about the next. And now, what's the next? What's the next? I see the next is the previous. Because we are talking about a green roof or solar energy or life without cars. They are stuff that already exist in the past, but we forgot it. We just, now is the time to discover again and use and go with them to our future.
Maybe last question. Uh-oh, there are two. So last two questions.
So I'm from Rome, and I think if I understood right, the two of the projects that you showed were playing fields. So my question is, if you have to transform a city that is used or very bound to its past, for example, like Rome, how do you get it to be a future city? Which are the challenges and how to overcome them?
Yeah. This is a very current challenge. Personally, I was discussing also with Davide to do some kind of research about this because I strongly believe that, again, we have to start with the small things. For instance, in Rome, you know, the impact of the merchandising stuff, you know, the impact of noises, the impact of colors, for instance, you know. So I think we have to be so careful about that, because I think that Rome is one of the most powerful and futuristic cities, if you imagine, because of the history, because of the ecological power that they have. But we have to manage this power. We have to manage, and in a very soft and careful way, because this is a new challenge, especially for Western countries, where there are a lot of heritage to preserve and to highlight and to improve as well. So this is an open question, I think.
Just a question now, when you mention cars in the cities, it's a very tricky question, and there are two parts. So once we said educating people and incorporating, but actually the only country that is actually doing that and actually managed to remove cars from the streets is Singapore. Because to buy a car in Singapore for the price of BMW 5 in Europe, in Singapore you can buy Fiat 500. So they tripled the price, they raised taxes 5 times, and also registration fees. So that's how they removed the cars from the streets, for some 45% or something like that. So that's a bit of a pushy approach, where people are not actually happy, but it's fast and efficient. And on the other way, there is a path of educating people, where they're actually happy for improving and contributing to the sustainability. So as it applies for cars, it applies also for the energy, that can be done with energy prices, building renovation, and so on. So I'm just interested, what is your opinion on between these two techniques?
Yeah,
because this one is quick, but you get only a short effect. The other one is slow, but you get a long-term effect.
Right. I think maybe I can just say that we have to find something in the middle. I explain myself better. Because if, in one hand, my government, is asking me for more taxes, right? In other hand, my government has to provide to me adequate public transport. Otherwise, this formula doesn't work. So I think it's really a parallel answer to your question. In one hand, as you are saying, just to encourage some kind of transport, walkable, bicycle, via, and other lot of millions of kind of transport way. And the other hand, try also to educate people and explain why this is so important.
Okay, thank you very much, Salvatore. It's a big applause.
Thank you all.
That's a long one. So so not only energy is interesting. We're learning, working together, multidisciplinary and multicultural approach. That's what we're doing in Kikino Energy. So identity and be careful with pushing innovation. That's what we are learning today. Thank you again. Maybe Claudio wants to add something more? No? Thank you very much.